Thank you very much, Paul Sam. In fact, joined by Exile, a big win on the day, 3-0. And you guys did it all on red side. Can you tell me a little bit more about the preference for red side that you've had recently?
Overall, we decided, because of the last picks and bans, that we want to go for red side, especially because there are a lot of OP picks at the moment. So you can pick away 2 in the first rotation. So that's really important. And also, a lot of mid laners get banned against us. So
no kidding.
Yeah. So if they first pick a mid laner, which is like not too broken, then it's fine.
Well, you certainly managed to show up this time around. And 2 out of 3 games definitely stepped it up, really rolled all over Giants. But then there was game 2. You kind of took a pretty big comeback. You want to tell me what happened in that one?
In the second game, it was a bit messy. For me in the mid lane, especially. I missed a lot of CS. And yeah, the first thing I'm going to do when I get home is train last hitting with Anivia, I guess. Yeah, I didn't play Anivia the entire week in solo queue and scrims because I didn't expect it to get banned. Or no, picked. So yeah, I didn't really train it, and it showed clearly.
Well, I'm glad you're going to go back and tighten the nuts and bolts getting ahead of the next game. Now, you will be facing off against an admittedly struggling Fnatic. How confident are you guys that you'll be able to take them out and move on to face against Splice?
I think at the moment we're pretty comfortable playing against Fnatic. I don't think they look too strong. We played 1 scrim against them in the past week. And yeah, I think we can manage to win against them.
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes down. Unicorns Fnatic games are always interesting to watch. Last question, though, for you. Exile, LCS is played here in your home country. You forget the fans week in and week out are always coming by to support you guys, the Love Hurts crew and everyone at home. Is there anything you'd like to say to all of them for supporting you throughout your first split?
Yeah, big thanks to our fans. They're always here supporting us, even if we lose or if things go bad. And they're always cheering, they're always positive, so they're cheering us up.
They certainly love you. All right, Exile, thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck tomorrow. But for now, we're going to go ahead and send it back to the analyst desk for the post-game lobby.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Congratulations to Exile and their whole Unicorns of Love squad. Welcome to the post-game lobby. I'm going to summarize this whole series in one very clear graphic. Bring up the post-game breakdown graphic for me. And I want you guys to look at the gold graph. That was Giants' series.
Well, hold on. There was a brief upswing in game 2. This is a little inaccurate.
And then they struck out, went completely.
I'm not gonna lie that the downhill trend is there, but we're missing the little blip that was game 2 for the first 25 minutes.
You're missing Maxlaw being like, maybe I'll try and carry. We'll get us a lead, and then 10k lead goes, and then next pick and ban phase, Veritas picks Vayne, and everything just goes horribly
Not
wrong.
an ideal way to go.
I mean, if we step away from this graphic, Perks, you sat down and made a little bit of fun of Stress for saying that Giants were going to win a game. 3-0, that's the series we're expecting to see. Were you surprised at maybe how disappointing Giants were? Because we expected Unicorns to win.
I was expecting exactly that.
And what does this mean now for Unicorns and how they performed? Like, was it clean? Was it just punishing a team who's weak?
Well, the game 1 and 3 were pretty clean, yeah, and game 2 was not clean, obviously. I don't remember what exactly went wrong in that game, but they have to look it up and fix those mistakes that happened. But I think just due to Giants poorly laning and not even training together, that, like for example, game 3 when Sivir Tam lose lane to Vayne Alistair, that should never happen. Like, that should never happen.
and to that point, I will stand by the 3-1. And I would also remind the context where I was saying that if Giants were to win that one game, I felt like it would be on Knight. I feel like Knight had a really lackluster performance in this, especially like game 3, he was already gone. Engaging into a Malzahar when the Shen ultimate is available, like that's never going to work. He didn't quite get what he needed in game 2 either. So like, I will hold my hands up and say I was wrong on a prediction. But at the same time, like my win condition that I thought Giants had did not show up at all in pretty much 3 games.
The lead coming in for game 2 was built entirely by Maxlor. Like, I talked so much smack about him in game 1 because he did play terribly. And in game 2, he shows up. This man solo gets his team this 10k lead essentially on this Elise, is playing like a monster. We broke down that really sloppy kind of back and forth team fight. And then as the game progressed, they just ran out of opportunities where they could get away with those kind of mistakes. And Chachi especially did a really good job splitting the team up. And it felt like once again, while Giants had shown these elements of team play in the early game based around Maxlor showing up and the team kind of coordinating well with the Gangplank ult, the second they started grouping up as 5 or splitting up across the map, like really any point in the late game, it just fell apart immediately.
Well, talking a lot of positives about Unicorns of Love. Pretty unanimous decision when it comes to the MVP of that series. We all voted in favor of Vizicachi. It is Deficio's favorite player in the European LCS. A lot of good Shentors.
I think it's pretty clear he was MVP because he won lane. I think all 3 games he was ahead in CS in matchups that are not like particularly favoring for Shen, and he made plays with his advantage, like tipping bot and just doing super good in lane and team fights. He was just really solid. So yeah,
And
definitely deserved.
for me, in those team fights, the taunts over Nah, Smitty J had a couple where he would have been able to get a Mega Nah off. I'll be honest, like MVP of this series isn't like, oh, you did the best out of everybody. It was kind of like Chachi played solidly. He played, well across the 3 games, but it's a rough series as a whole. Like, I to some extent, you can see that Giants didn't practice and Unicorns were a little off practice, but certainly Unicorns were better because, like, it didn't look like Giants really could hang at all.
I mean, to be honest, like, I really have no idea what we can take from this from Unicorns of Love.
Yeah.
This was not, what we learned really was that there are some inconsistencies in the jungle for them, and that there's often, like, sometimes Move is a god and sometimes Move makes mistakes. That's the only thing that I really saw from that game. He was good on the Nidalee. You can't take that away. That was, 5-0-7. He had a good scoreline, Perks. You can't take that away from him.
And he was behind in CS.
Yeah, he was also behind in CS. So it's a little rough for Unicorns in the jungle, but the rest of the game was just a stomp. Like, they cleaned house. And I think looking tomorrow for Fnatic, I have a lot of questions, and it just doesn't, I don't feel like we can cleanly say that Unicorns of Love are amazing.
Just before we look ahead, Perks, what do you think of Move's jungle performance today?
Well, I think it's same as every other day. His petting is really inefficient. Like, a lot of times I see him skip some camps just to oink on the map, and so I don't know what to think of him. I think he's he does some stuff, like he creates pressure for his laners. He tries to gank and I guess put some vision with Green Smite, but I think versus better teams he gets easily abused, and he gets always, like, versus Trick he was every game 3 or 4 levels behind. I don't know. So I think tomorrow is going to be hard for him.
We've seen that a lot, as you said, in the series against G2 and some of the other series. But if Move gets on Rek'Sai, it covers a lot of those weaknesses, the easier pathing, decent clear time, the ult allows him to get it back out on the map. And that is why it is such a big ban right now, just in general, because it's such a forgiving jungler that in the early game you get in. So Unicorns are never, ever getting Rek'Sai. They're either going to have to ban it or it'll be banned away from them because how, much it covers for a lot of those weaknesses.
All right, so we're looking a lot now towards tomorrow. Let's quickly just give everybody at home a reminder. With Unicorns of Love's victory, they move on to challenge Fnatic tomorrow. It does mean that obviously Giants now fall out of the regional qualifier, and I want to turn my attention very briefly to Giants before we look at the rest of this bracket, because it's a very disappointing end to the year. Giants, they started to show up, they found some level of consistency, they had some players performing towards the end of the split, but the moment standard lanes came out, that duo lane weaknesses got very heavily exposed, and it just, the quarterfinals in our this series, it just puts a sour taste to the Giants 2016.
Exactly. It almost like taints what was a fantastic split for them. Like, remembering back how they played in the tail end of the split, like really good, solid performances when they had their lane swap down to a T. So this is an organization that now has a little bit of time now to figure out exactly what they want to do. It didn't seem like they were committed to going to Worlds in their current state because of whatever issues they had internally. So, I think they should probably keep a hold of Knight, because when he is playing well, he can play up to a very good level. And Maxwell's shown a lot of potential too.
I agree, and I definitely want to see what happens with the team in the offseason. It's going to be a challenge, but I want to hit on one of the other teams that had some internal problems and also a disappointing end to the playoffs, Fnatic, against Unicorns tomorrow. Sifa, what do you make of that? After seeing UOL now, knowing we haven't seen Fnatic for 3+ weeks.
Okay, so there's a lot of question marks here in terms of what Fnatic are going to bring to the table. I think the 2 big ones for me are going to be Spirit and Kikis in the top lane. Kikis, I do not think will give Vizicachi nearly as much of an edge. I think if we see the same Gnar into Shen matchup, I think Kikis will perform much better, Gnar being a champion that he is quite fantastic at. And then if we look in the jungle, I think we saw Maxlor outclass Move in Game 2, and if Spirit brings a good performance, although he has been shaky, I think he can do exactly the same thing and build Fnatic a lead from the laning phase, and Fnatic are not a team that are going to give that up in the same way that we saw Giants.
Do you favor Fnatic then? Based on what you just said? Based on
I'm going to favor Fnatic, yes, because I think I didn't see enough from Unicorns of Love today. Like the Vayne pick to me is wonderful, but also like just kind of showboaty. Like I feel like we could have seen cleaner gameplay coming out from them, cleaner snowballs. I think they crush Giants. That's wonderful. But I think when it's this style of game, if we're looking up against an opponent that historically has done better than they have, I don't think we can give them too much credit for it.
Perks, what do you think?
Well, I'm not sure what to think of Fnatic exactly. So if they show up, like I expect them to, I think they will take the series. I think it's gonna be a close series though. I think it's gonna be 3-2 Fnatic, because Unicorns are like still very strong players early game, and I think if Fnatic can like not fall to their aggression or even match it, then they should have a easier time winning the game than Giants did. Just because I think Fnatic has better players and probably better teamwork too, and they actually screamed, unlike Giants, so, they have more chances for sure.
Favoriting Fnatic tomorrow. I think in general, though, everyone expects Splice to then beat whoever wins tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on that just in a little bit. But for now, earlier today, we asked you over at LOL Esports, who do you think will be victorious in the regional qualifiers and why? We have a tweet from @It'sLonely. He or she thinks Fnatic will take it. They said, if Samsung can beat KT, Fnatic can beat Unicorns, Giants, and Splice. Now, I promised I didn't prepare that ahead of time. Do you think there is enough magic in Fnatic that if they can win tomorrow to bounce back and beat Splice on Monday?
No, I personally think that no team that wins tomorrow will have chance versus Splice. I mean, maybe they will have some small chances, but if Splice plays to their performance, like, I think Trashy and Wunder are just so much better than any other players in their position, like as a duo at least. Like Vichachi is sure a very good top laner, and but I think Move is not quite on Trashy's level, so I think Trashy and Wunder will be the deciding factor in any series.
And of course, Stress, you believed in a little bit of Giants magic. Didn't pan out today. Do you exactly? Do you believe in some of the other magic? Fnatic Febiven, he's predicting Fnatic.
Oh, I'm glad.
That's not a surprise.
Well, I mean, Featherman's been fairly, not outspoken recently, but, he's been fairly emotional on Twitter. And, Fnatic and Splice, with whatever happened this week with scrims, clearly have both said, we want to be at Worlds. They've showed they want determination. Like, let's be real. If Fnatic have been taking the last few weeks seriously since they lost to H2K, have been practicing, and have got good practice against Splice, there's no reason they shouldn't beat Unicorns, who aren't very well practiced.
Yeah.
And potentially can take it to Splice. If they've learned enough in the last few weeks, which we don't have visibility on, there's a possibility, but still, like, I would not put money on Fnatic making it past Splice.
While I'm generally a believer in the a few weeks off can change the team completely, Fnatic had a whole season here.
I don't think it's time off. I think it has to have been weeks of hard work.
Oh no, I mean time away from competitive play.
Okay.
Let's say that. So practicing and scrimming, but I still just do not. I don't see it. Fnatic would have to seriously level up their team play to really come out on top here, because as you mentioned, Trashy is just performing God tier, and he's performing God tier pretty consistently, only being shut down by Trick really in that last final. And Spirit is all over the place. Sometimes the man is a monster. Sometimes, honestly, he just throws games away. So really we see that consistency come through. I'm really skeptical that Fnatic can even take it to Splice.
Yeah, Spirit sometimes does very well, and then he picks stuff like Rumble or Kha'Zix or something like that, and then makes the game a lot harder for his team. But also, I saw Reckless Plays TV video, his Tristana is insane, so I expect Reckless to pick Tristana tomorrow and get the pentakill,
Tristana pentakill. I actually think it was. He got that loss in Stockholm, I think it was.
Yeah, it was
on Tristana as well.
I like that our research is Reckless's Plays TV highlights. I just saw Veritas destroy people with Vayne. He is going to win no matter what tomorrow.
Yeah, I did see that. Both of them was trolling, but yeah.
That's how we put play-by-plays at the end. To round out the conversation. But listen, these teams, they continue to fight for the final spot for Worlds 2016. Let's once again look at all the teams who have already booked their tickets to San Francisco and the World Championship. Obviously split down into a couple of pools. We're going to start by looking at some of these Pool 1 teams. Rocks, Tigers, EDG, Flash Wolves, and TSM Europe lost their Pool 1 seed. Thank you, Perks.
Thanks.
Sorry.
But obviously looking at some of these squads, you've already mentioned you've got some scrims against some of these guys. Are they the strongest teams from all of their regions? Obviously, the answer is yes. They won. But what's your take on the relative strength? Is Rocks better than EDG, better than Flash Wolves, better than TSM?
Right now, I think EDG is the strongest. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think so. And then Rox, and then TSM, and then Flash Wolves. That's my thoughts from watching the games. I think all the teams are good, like very good, and Flash Wolves is like kind of a wild card. I think by like their main players are mid and jungle. So if they don't carry that, I don't think their top or bot lane will carry. So it's like depends on them to carry the games. And EDG is like a very well-rounded team with like very strong mid jungle and bot. Like their bot duo is very good, and their top is kind of like a lonely guy who gets just ditched away on the island, you know, and come on, deal with
Like expect at the beginning of the split, the middle of the split.
just deal yourself, you know, and then TSM is like a very good team too. They work super good together. They just play really good as a team. So
Is it going to be the third year in a row that we're baited by EDG and the Chinese teams? Because I do not disagree. I watched the finals. EDG picked the globals.
Triggering Sifa. You're
Go
triggering
bot.
Sifa.
No,
know.
I can't argue with you because my point is that China always plays a very different style of League of Legends. They value things differently, whereas we might see it as really black and white, like this is the right choice, this is the wrong choice. They're willing to give up what we would consider traditional macro decision making to give specific players leads, to look for fights that may seem risky, but they're confident in being able to out execute. So I think EDG, knowing that the meta isn't going to shift very much, knowing that there's just going to be slight adjustments as we move forward through the patches, I think this is EDG's best shot for coming into Worlds. I think they know the meta. I think they've got fantastic players for standard lanes, and Clearlove is a god. Clearlove is one of the best players in the world.
true.
This man is consistently, he's a god. I'm going to leave it at that.
I can't disagree with anything spoken about EDG. They did have a very convincing finals using globals, like making set plays, just focusing on the numbers advantage. But, you know, we've been talking about this a lot, obviously, in the build-up to Worlds. It's the bootcamp that's going to change everything. Because if bootcamp creates a meta, like last year's bootcamp, people were like, well, yeah, high midding a top's 100% getting played. Like, I say that in all certainty. Like, I know that was being played by people like Huni, Smeb, like everyone was practicing it. But it didn't get to the point where that was shown. And it always changes a lot of things in that bootcamp time. And Perks, I'm sure you'll be able to attest to this in a couple of weeks' time. You'll be like, yeah, we all feel supercharged by this bootcamp.
I'm really looking forward to the bootcamp and testing champions and playstyles, and looking forward to what new patches bring too. But I do agree you have some points, because I remember last year I was told that people were playing a lot of like LeBlanc and Ahri and Yasuo in streams and stuff like that, and then on stage you could only see like Victor, Azir, and you could see some Yasuo from Rookie, I think, or something like that, but those Chinese teams just faltered and lost the game with Yasuo, you know. So I think it's gonna be the same this year. Like a lot of risky picks are gonna be picked in streams, but when it comes to the stage, it's gonna be just safe champs like Sivir, Vladimir, and same meta, because it's not that there is too high risk for too low reward for the champions that are risky on top or mid, because if you don't get ahead with them, they're really useless. So it's not even worth to play them.
And I think the one difference here is that if we look at 5.18 as a patch, that was like just too big, too massive for teams. So it's really easy for teams with a set number of scrim partners to kind of inbreed their own meta, to like think that something is really good because one team is playing it really well. Whereas this time around, we have a lot more footage. If the patches aren't that different, I think that the meta we will see will remain relatively the same. And while there may be one or two kind of innovative picks that are coming out, I don't think anyone is going to have a completely wrong read on the meta, which I think was a very strong possibility for last Worlds.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement, because last year it was like just random boom patch. Deadman's Plate, Sterox Gauge, Darius, Mordekaiser, Renekton,
Gangplank.
Fiora, GP. Let's drop it all, you know. And the red side was like, you have to ban Mordekaiser and GP or you lost the game. So the draft was like pretty one-sided, and teams that had blue side would win the game in best of series most of the time. And also, right now, you're right about teams understanding the meta better. Like it took some while, like a lot of patches, but right now, like it's pretty common and clear to everyone what they should play and how they should play, and it can only get better for each team. But
Thing is, there are slight differences, right, between each region. We're seeing certain champions played a little bit more, a little bit differently. I do want to highlight the top row of our Pool 2 teams, because both European squads, G2 and H2K, are going to be in Pool 2. And then it's SKT and Samsung Galaxy. Now, Samsung Galaxy took down KT earlier today. I think, surprisingly, I think KT was sort of the favorites. But now, interesting to see, like, SKT, they didn't win their final. They got upset by KT in the semi-final of LCK. what's your take now looking at like these two Korean squads? Have you had a chance to watch much Samsung Galaxy?
Yeah, I watched Samsung today versus Katie, and I was really disappointed by Katie performance. I think today's series was played pretty poorly by both teams, and in the end, the team with better draft won in the game 5, where Katie completely lost in draft, I think. About SKT, they looked really strong the first 2 games versus Katie in the semifinals, and then they just, I don't know what happened, like they just crash and burn. I think SKT has obvious flaws, like top and jungle. They are pretty weak players. Or like Duke is good on some champs, but then when you put him on GP, you can see
the difference in play, right?
You can see that he doesn't have a mouse sometimes.
But but how much of a weakness is this? Something that you think SKT can work on? Because also, let's be frank,
they can for sure. Yeah, like it's not like it's just how it looked like in semifinals. These players can improve. There was like 1 month, that was 2 weeks ago or something. They can still improve to the worlds, and they can work on their flaws to being better, like, and working as a team. Like Blank had pretty poor performance too, and it was like that in Spring Split too, and then Blank played like good at MSI, and he played good at finals, and people were like flaming him, but he had good performance again. So maybe he can improve his performance again, and then it's gonna make whole team play better.
And I think this meta as a whole is just so heavily jungler focused. When you're guaranteed standard lanes, pathing options become so much more creative. And we look at the jungle talent that comes in here, it's all super top tier. Like, we're sending Yanko's Trick. We've got Clear Love coming in. We've just got so much talent across the board. We've got Peanut, who is, an absolute aggressive monster, although he has kind of developed a little bit more to his style as well, not always just the red smite dueling jungler. And I think while Blank is a good jungler, like, he's now competing against the best of the best, so he really has to step up. And my big thing coming into this is I'm just praying for H2K's sake that they don't end up in the EDG SKT group one more time.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah,
that would suck. And to speak about the jungle, this is one of the other meta things that I'm really excited to see coming out of bootcamp is if anything else rises up in priority, because we've got Rek'Sai, we've got Elise, we've got Nidalee.
Gragas is nerfed on next patch. Apparently,
yeah.
I'm not sure because I haven't played against it, but apparently you can just flash the E-flash because there is a cast time and ult. So I think that's gonna change a lot of priority on Gragas, because Gragas was OP because E-flash has
Trashy screwed. Trashy screwed.
Yeah,
that's it. We've just lost the jungler.
But at least Gauntlet is on the
this is the right one.
So they can go to worlds and then suck.
It's okay. We've got Skarner coming through. It did so much in today's. No, it did almost nothing. Like, they just won lane 1 game today for.
I have to bring us back. I have to bring us back to Europe. We are running out of time. Yeah. Listen, our coverage of the European Regional Qualifiers continues tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central European Summertime, with the Unicorns of Love facing another boss. This time round, it is Fnatic. Gentlemen, we only have a little bit of time here, so I want to get some predictions on how you think the series will go, because we will quote it and we will roll back video and make fun of you if you're right or wrong. You giggled first, so you get to vote first.
I will vote. I was wrong today. It doesn't matter. I'll just be wrong again. 3-2 Fnatic. I think it's not going to be easy for Fnatic. I think they should just edge it out.
Perks?
I wanted to say 3-2 Fnatic, but since Stress said it, it's gonna be wrong probably. So I will go with 3-1 Fnatic.
Okay, 3-1
Sticking with the Perks predictions has done well for me so far on the 3-0 UOL. So we'll say 3-1 for Fnatic.
All right, so going somewhat against like the trend coming into regional qualifier, the thought process. We'll find out which one of you guys is correct tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us. We are going to log off for tonight. Perks, thank you for joining me. Thanks to the other guys
Thank you for having me.
There's more LCS coming your way tomorrow. Tonight, rather, at 9 p.m. Central with summertime. That's in about an hour and 8 minutes time. North American Regional kicks off with Team Liquid versus Envy. For us, we'll see you tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Cheers, guys.
Bye.